Well, welcome to another Cliff's List interview. And tonight I have my very good friend and a special guest, Scot McKay, who is one of the most outstanding dating coaches online, in my opinion. And I think he has a very special skill set and a very unique perspective on things. And I'm very thrilled to have him tonight to explain a little bit about what he does and how he got to where he is. And Scot, perhaps you can take over from here and give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself for those who aren't familiar with you.
Well, first of all, it is all my pleasure to be here tonight, Cliff. As you know, you were one of the first guys who ever published my stuff way back in 2005 or 2006, and you even introduced me to Eben Pagan, which led to me being on his interviews with dating gurus. So basically, I'm always happy to talk to your audience and do anything for you need me to do. Yeah, I've been at this for, wow, over 18 years now. And I've done it most of the time with the greatest woman I've ever met by my side, which is a bit of an eyebrow raiser to a lot of guys out there. You know, back in the early days, especially, I get emails from guys with all kinds of schadenfreude, like, you know, that beautiful woman by your side must be a paid actress, or she's going to leave you for Tommy Lee from Motley Crue of all people, or, you know, let's see if you're so happy and giving such good advice when she leaves you for a taller, richer guy in 3 years from now. And 18 years from now, I don't get a whole lot of those emails anymore. We're still very happy together. I would do it all over again. And what I hear a lot is, well, if you're married, how do you know about dating? But then I also hear from people that are single dating coaches that people will complain to them, if you know so much about how to get women, how come you're still single? So I think the only guy who really wins in that scenario is the guy who's perpetually engaged or something. But you know, ultimately what we do around here has always been a little different than what the pickup artist guys did in the past. I've always been friendly with you and all the guys who were in the game, and we've had big mastermind meetings with guys who ran a very pickup artist show for guys who are, you know, trying to get laid. But I've always kind of been a sort of a fox in the henhouse of sorts, although a friendly one. And that I'm mostly here for the guys who, first of all, love and adore women, which seems like it should go without saying, but a lot of guys just hate these bitches. They just want to have sex. And I've always genuinely loved female human beings and still do. And also the guys that want to treat women right and get a woman who treats them right in return, not just a piece of ass. Sure, we end up getting a lot of minded guys around here. But most of all, Cliff, what I've always been impressed with over the years is how much I really like the guys who come to me. I mean, I just really could have a beer with almost all of these guys. You got military officers, you got guys who run businesses, guys who are good, decent guys. Who have interesting lives. I've had the tremendous honor of working one-on-one, face-to-face with 3 different Navy SEALs in my life, and I just respect those guys immensely. Lots of pilots, lots of lawyers, medical doctors, academes. I mean, if we had a reunion of sorts of guys who've been in my coaching program, which I would never do for anonymity's sake, of course, but I always kid with guys, you know, although it's very real, that you'd probably want to ask several of them for their autographs, you know. So it's always been a service to men who are of good character. You know, when was the last time you heard the word character in the pickup artist world, right? Those guys who are sick of just not getting the women they know they deserve, because they are good men. They want to treat a woman right, and they want a woman who treats them right. A lot of those guys have been through the same history I have, where, you know, we made a mistake the first time around or several times around and ended up with crazy women or women with, you know, some kind of psychopathic disorder or dark triad women who take us for a ride. And of course, society would love to tell you that all women wear halos and all men are toxic. But, you know, I think societal reality bears out very strongly that, you know, there are a lot of black-hearted humans of both genders and a lot of really kind-hearted ones too. And that's all led really to the mantra and indeed the URL of our main website from back in the day, which is deserve what you want. If you want a great woman, be a great man, and the great women will be looking for a guy like you in return.
You know, I don't want to go off topic too much, but you remind me of how many outstanding guys I've met through the community. You know, used to go to you know, seminars hosted by Ross Jeffries and by Evan, David D'Angelo, and many of these guys were just phenomenal people.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, from my kind of theoretical ideas, one of the things I had was in my mind was that you know, there's a lot of guys out there that are, call them, not necessarily so ethical and all this other stuff, and I always found that kind of interesting because I thought those people would be willing to try things that guys like myself wouldn't do, and I think that that was a good sort of experimental laboratory for us to see what is possible, because you needed guys who would do stuff out of the ordinary, who thought out of the ordinary, to try and break the conventions and break the expectations that, you know, everybody else might have or just
Yeah.
wouldn't do, you know. And so that was part of my theories about this stuff. And you know, I would always sort of expect that, you know, you're talking about seduction and you know, this type of thing. You've got to expect that there's going to be some guys in this that are less than ethical, call it. You know, but at the same time, I think that there could be things to learn from them, that you don't necessarily have to do those things, and maybe there's certain bits and pieces you can get out of them that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Anyway, like I said, I didn't really mean to sort of hijack this and go into a different direction, because really what I'm focused on, as we've discussed, is I like to learn about your journey from having, you know, I don't know if you were someone who was naturally good with women, or if it was
No.
something that you learned.
No, it's all learned. Yeah.
And I want to hear about your experience, your journey from zero to hero, as they say. So maybe you can explain that a little bit.
Well, you know, I heard everything you just said, and I don't disagree with any of it. You mentioned Ross, and Ross has taken some flack for, you know, having some curious psychological practices and kind of reeling in the biscuit, as it were, and you know, phrases like speed seduction, which may sound almost ironic to a lot of guys. Like, the last thing you want to do if you're trying to attract women is hurry up. You know, there's even a Dos Equis most interesting man in the world commercial from, you know, 5 or probably more like 10 years ago now. That was the most interesting man on speed dating. And he basically looks at the camera with these two beautiful women hanging all over him in some kind of really interesting, amazing, you know, noir lit place. I don't think most women would see speed as a virtue. And he takes a puff on his cigar, you know. So yet, weirdly, Ross and I always have seemed to gotten along online. He's always complimented my work, and I've always said thank you. And I would credit Ross Jeffries for saying one of the smartest things I've ever heard a fellow dating coach say. And that's this: when you know you're good with women when you start saying no to perfectly good ones. And I always thought that was incredibly insightful, and, you know, had a meta level meaning. And you know, if you got what he was saying, you really get it. That means you're spoiled for choice, and you're not so needy anymore. And you're and you're, you know, you don't have time for every beautiful woman you meet anymore. And I always thought that was a very elegant way to say something very profound. And of course, Ross said that. So when you say there's something you can take from just about everyone, you know, like I said, I'm not sure Ross and I would agree on much else in the dating world, although it seems like we've already respected each other, always respect each other's work. And, you know, that's hard to come by with Ross. He will freely tell you what he thinks, as you know, sometimes in very colorful words. But no, I have not been a natural. It is all learned skill. And there are two things that I would say in response to what you said. First of all, it all starts with really actually adoring women. I mean, we've all met women who don't like men, and they're angry at men, and they're bitter at men, and they're like, can you find me a good husband? And they'll come to us like that, with that attitude, that mindset, and Emily and I will look at each other and go, no. Right? And it's weird, because if you put the shoe on the other foot for a second and think like a woman, these women will say, all these men only want one thing, and you know, they're not relationship ready. They're all commitment phobes. Well, hold on. If she's really sexually attractive and has lots of body parts, you know, lots of toys to play with, as I call it, and she's just awful and doesn't like men and doesn't respect men, I think there's a lot of guys who will stick the round peg in the round hole, but they're not going to get into a relationship with her. Doesn't mean she looks good, but they're not going to girlfriend her. They're not going to wag her, you know? And so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that she's generating, and yet she's going to blame all men for it. So, I mean, here we come along as male human beings, and I have this saying you probably heard me say before. I believe men are from Earth and women are from Earth, as opposed from the Mars and Venus thing. I think we're more alike than different. You know, if a man or a woman wins the lottery, we're going to be happy. If either of our dogs run away, we're going to be sad, right? And I think if we don't like women and we just want to use them for sex, and we just think they're a bother otherwise, we can't expect women with self-respect, with good character, who are sweet and want to like men, to want us. I mean, maybe if they're want to hit it and have a fling, I mean, I think that's a completely different conversation. But even then, let's say you're a super rich dude. How do you feel about gold diggers who just want your money and don't like you? I mean, you probably won't even take them out on a date. And if you're spoiled for choice to the point where, you know, our friend Mr. Jeffries was talking about, you'll probably pick a different one anyway. You'll say no to those women who just want you to buy them things and take them on shopping dates. So fundamentally speaking, like I said, you got to deserve what you want. So if you're a man who likes women and you know how femininity works, which is something we can talk about a lot if you want to, because I think I've cracked the code on that, what you're going to find is women just respond to you. I don't know if any of you guys out there are motorcycle racer guys or have experience with fast cars, but when you drive or ride a performance vehicle the way it was meant to be, it was designed to be ridden or driven at some bit of an expert level instead of ham-fisting it, it just responds to you. Like if you know how to drive a Porsche 911, you know, with its rear engine and the weight distribution of that car, and you know how to do it effectively, that car will reward every move you make that's correct. Same for road racing motorcycles. You know, if you know how to gauge where the front suspension is and that thing's just dialed right, then you can ride the wheels off that thing and it'll perform better and feel better the faster you ride it. Well, it may be a bit of a crass analogy, but I believe women are designed to follow a male lead when that male has her best interest at heart, when that man is a provider and a protector and makes her feel safe and comfortable. I think when women feel safe and comfortable around you because of you, they respond sexually to you. So it's very much like the better I am, the more I know, the more of an expert, more expertise I gain, the better this responds to me. Okay. And I think a lot of guys have had admittedly very bad experiences with women, crazy women who've hurt them, stolen from them, used them. And they've had a pattern of that, or they've experienced very mean women who've rejected them. And it's easy for us to fall into a pattern of being very angry, very bitter, and blaming the women. But we have to understand that that's a hole the women aren't going to help us dig out of. You know, if we believe we want to change that mindset, and if anything I'm saying to any of you guys listening right now is resonating, you have the power. You are not a victim. If there's anything around here we're not, is victims. We are anti-victimhood. If you know who Jocko Willink is, his company sponsors my podcast, and they handpicked us because we're the anti-victimhood men's dating outlet. It was just hand in glove, boy. Okay. That's how we roll around here. That's why I get the military guys and the entrepreneurs. These guys don't feel like victims in any other way, except perhaps they feel less personal power than they should when it comes to attracting women and getting the right ones into their lives. For some guys, it's a puzzle to figure out. I feel like the Dr. House of dating advice sometimes, trying to help these guys figure that out. But really, honestly, when you run masculinity by design, women respond with very feminine energy, and somewhat controversially, which I still can't understand where the controversy is. I believe that masculinity and femininity are the building blocks of sexual attraction. That's what they're for. So when you are engaging a woman's femininity with your masculinity, and that intelligent design fits, you're going to get sexually attracted women. As long as you're not gross and you take care of yourself, and you have the confidence to believe you should be the guy women want, you're going to find that it doesn't really matter whether you won the so-called genetic lottery or not. Women are going to find themselves just magnetically drawn to you sexually, and then you become spoiled for choice, like Ross said.
Maybe you can go into a little bit more of the transition that you went through, because the focus I like is to help guys to go from where they are to where they want to be, basically. And,
right.
and I understand, like, I think we all understand certain things about for example, and I'd love to have you go into more detail about the importance of understanding masculinity and femininity. But that it's one thing to have an understanding of it. It's another thing to integrate it into your behavior. And I think that's really where I'm like to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, well, first things first. I mean, the one thing I had going for me all along is my dad just adores my mom. They've been married for 62 years, and he makes her laugh. He makes her feel like everything's going to be okay. I got on a Sirius XM radio show one time with women I knew who were going to be a little hostile towards me, kind of feminist. And I told them, I think I understand women. And they're like, oh, really, smart guy? How does that work? And I said, a woman wants you to hold her, tell her everything's going to be okay, and be believable. And they stopped, which, a pregnant pause in radio is unheard of. And they went, I got nothing. That sounds right to me. And I'll say things to feminists like, I believe femininity is the higher calling. I think we as guys are the enablers and protectors of the world's femininity so it can blossom and shine. I think it's a shame women are trying to be masculine instead of femininity, because there's nothing left to protect. But what you guys, the fun, the play, the wonderful energy, the fun, the joy, the party that women bring, when they feel safe and comfortable and not angry and not scared. By the way, women live in fear a lot. Okay, when you lift that fear off them instead of contributing to it, you're the beneficiary of it. It's amazing. Just because you made her, you lifted all the fear, you made everything okay. By being a protector. I just did a podcast on this. By being a protector doesn't mean you take bullets for her or get beat up, by thugs. It just means you don't make her feel stupid. You don't walk her down dark alleys. You don't drive like a maniac. You validate her. You're not just trying to get your paws all over and use her sexually from minute one. You have a consistency to your character and your behavior that isn't creepy. That's all it takes. It doesn't take raw heroism. And so this is what my dad demonstrated, my entire life. He didn't sit down and tell me word for word what he was doing, but I think we all know that the example we're given of what a family looks like growing up is our default setting. Well, I lucked out there. Okay. And I understand, and man, do I commiserate with anyone else who had it crappy growing up. Okay. I understand what a bird's nest that is to pull apart. So I want to acknowledge that to all the guys listening. But what I was too high in IQ. So my brain spun in all these different directions. I was also very much an approval seeking people pleaser, which backfires on you socially. So I wanted to be a friend of everybody. I wanted to be liked, and I found myself people being annoyed and ignoring me. And I couldn't understand that, because that's the opposite of what I was trying to do. So indeed, as I grew up, I started suffering from what I call nowadays the too good to be true factor, which is, now that it's gone through 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, and I still haven't really gotten any success with women. It's starting to be really hard to visualize, for example, getting a girl naked or having an actual blowjob given to me by a female human being. Like, it just seems crazy to me. And I mean, I'm only 16. So, as we go through life, guys get to be 30, 35. I can only imagine the depths to which we descend here. It's not unlike the mindset of someone who's lived in poverty their entire life and then they're told, hey, you can get a job that pays 150, 200,000 a year. And they'll go, oh, you got to be kidding me. That's impossible. It's too far away. And the longer they go in poverty, the more despair they feel about that. Meanwhile, if someone's grown up the son of a billionaire, they'd scoff at having $150,000 a year. I mean, that would be laughable to them. So it is really all perspective, isn't it? And also, as I grew up, I was very, very afraid of rejection, very afraid of being shamed socially. Because remember, I was an approval seeker. So I'm like the poster boy for approach anxiety and fear of rejection. And I did something that I coined later on as a dating coach called shyness-induced snobbery. And I'd never heard anybody talk about this when I was a consumer of men's dating advice in the PUA world before I became a guy who gives it. But that's this idea that if I'm attracted to a woman, like if she's, oh my God, the one I have one-itis for when I'm a high school junior or senior, I just won't acknowledge her existence. I'll pretend I don't even see her. Because if I do interact with her and it gets, like led on to her that I'm attracted to her, she'll point at me, laugh at me, shame me. Everybody will find out, and it'll be like Charlie Brown's Classroom. Ha, 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 ha. I've had so many guys over the years say, man, I can totally resonate with that. I'm that guy. But here's the thing. You've pre-rejected yourself when that happens. You're not letting her have her opinion on whether she likes you or not. Right? And that's really, really painful because you're not even granting yourself the opportunity to be worthy of a woman. So how did this vicious cycle, this vortex, how did this code get cracked, right? Well, I lucked out. I had somebody come up to me, this really cute girl in high school, and say, hey, do you know my friend? And I lied and said, no, never heard of her. Of course, I eyeballed her, imagined her naked every time she walked up and down at school. Every time I saw her, oh, I knew who she was. I think she likes you. You should ask her out. Well, it took me 2 weeks to get the balls to ask her out, even under such circumstances. But then she said yes. And all those little things that I had already registered are too good to be true started happening. But then I got so obsessed with her that she broke up with me because I was just too much. And then the cycle started all over again. So it was very fragile. It was kind of a Pyrrhic victory of sorts. So all through college, I started descending into the whole Mr. Nice Guy thing where I figured I better walk on eggshells and not make any mistakes and be extra nice and extra supplicative to these women, or I might lose them because it's all fear of loss. And that, of course, led to me marrying the wrong woman who I knew had the red flags, and she went literally crazy on me. I mean, for any of you guys out there who have women who have literally fallen into psychosis and ruined your life, I'm right there with you. You guys come talk to me. We'll help you dig out of that. I'm your huckleberry when it comes to that, And I was a very damaged guy out of that divorce. But, as a 34-year-old guy, I said to myself, no, you know what? I don't want to be a victim. Everybody said, oh, you were a great husband. What a great father to your children. I did everything I could, Cliff, to get it right. And I succeeded at it and still got kicked to the curb by this woman who wasn't even in our reality. So, I mean, how does it feel to do your best, have everybody tell you did your best and still lose? Well, you can only feel like a victim from there. Well, I didn't want to feel like that. So I said two things. I'm going to understand women, right? An enigma wrapped in a problem, surrounded by a quandary, right? Nobody thinks that can happen. And second of all, I am, damn it, going to start representing what it is women find attractive. That's when I became familiar with your work. That's when I became familiar with David D'Angelo's work. And yes, it started paying off big results. I'll never forget the first time I was on a date with a woman, and I just started doing things that are in Double Your Dating by David D'Angelo, and the woman responding to it exactly the way David D. Eben Pagan said she would. I was just flabbergasted. And then after 2 or 3 times of it happening, I had 2 or 3 women in my life who I found sexually attractive. And guess what happened? It was like a veil was lifted. All of a sudden, I didn't fear rejection from a potential 4th one. Because I had proven to myself that I had several women who like me and will get naked with me, who will offer their vaginas, as angry women often say. And the next thing you know, I started believing in myself. And here's something I figured out. This isn't something I have to do. This is something I get to do. It's incredibly fun. Women are just amazing once you learn them and figure out the pattern of attracting them. Something that guys may or may not know about me is I'm extremely well-traveled. I've been everywhere. I make Johnny Cash jealous. And femininity and what attracts women is like a universal language, like math, okay? Mathematics. It's the same everywhere, and the pattern is the same everywhere. And so hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight into what my journey is. It doesn't sound too unattainable to guys, because I promise you, if I'm the kind of guy I am, the kind of guy you are, can make it happen for you as well.
Can you go into some detail about, I guess the patterns of things that work with women that a lot of guys don't necessarily get, and I guess probably the things that you would end up coaching them more than other things, because these are the building blocks of success.
Right. Okay. Well, here's the first thing. Remember what I just said about how when I had 2 or 3 women who were actually attracted to me, I started believing I could do this. The number one differentiator between men who are successful with women and men who aren't is they believe they should be successful with women. They believe they have a right to have women be attracted to them. Everything else is in second place. So what happens is that brings about a confidence, or confidence brings that about. It's rather like a chicken or an egg now, isn't it? So you're probably going to say, well, how do you get the confidence? Well, you have to fly, you have to jump out of a plane and pull the parachute ripcord and hope the parachute opens the first couple times. You have to actually go out and do something. And you have to give yourself permission to do it wrong, as painful as it'll be the first several times, right? But the other thing that you can park in your mind when you're doing that is you can say, this is natural. Men and women are supposed to be attracted to each other. Women don't go around looking for ways to reject men. I think it would be really psycho if a woman went out on a date with a guy hoping to reject him, hoping it goes wrong. Women are always hopeful and optimistic when they're going out on a date, or they wouldn't be there, even if you met her online. I haven't actually met her in person before. They're hoping it goes well. This idea that women are kind of going around looking to reject you is a protection mechanism for guys who are lacking the courage to try this. And here's what I can promise you. If you actually like women, if you are looking for reasons to like her as a human being too, not like just be friend zone, but at least get along with her. You know what I mean? The problem with the just be friend zone is the just, not the friends. I am a friend to women, okay? But I also tend to turn them on sexually. You give them space. You're not, one of the things I do think is dead wrong is kino escalation. Like, you have to touch her early and often so she gets used to you touching her. If you have the right vibe and you know how to bring out that playful, fun femininity in her, kind of coax it out. Remember when I talked about driving that Porsche 911? There's a difference between being feminine and inviting the feminine to come out and play. Okay? And there's a boldness to it. There's a lack of fear of things sexual. Like, women are very comfortable talking about sex. And they won't talk about sex with guys they don't want to have sex with. They're not going to bring up sex with a guy they're grossed out towards, because they don't want him thinking about it. But women, just like with how they flirt, women tend to think in gray areas better than men do. We think either she's attracted or not. Either I'm ignoring her due to shyness-induced snobbery or whatever, or I'm telling her, hey, let's go have sex. That gray area in the middle isn't there. But women will start talking about sex with you. And if you're scared and go, oh my God, is this some kind of ruse? Is she tricking me? You'll be friend zoned. Okay. She won't see you as a sexual guy. But if you're happy go lucky about it, like, oh, this is just another conversation, she'll go, okay, here's a guy who's not intimidated by sex. And then you have to believe your lying eyes. You know, I have this idea, and you're talking about things that worked for me. I got into a habit of taking myself out of the observational element of my dating. In other words, instead of saying, oh my God, was that actually a signal she just gave me? I started saying to myself, what if I was a third party watching some other dude interacting with a woman I wanted, and she just said that to him? Would I go, oh God, she's all into him? Why can't I be that guy? Well, I started giving myself that kind of benefit of the doubt. And I started just realizing I have a right. I have a right to read those signals just the way any other guy would. And so I started trusting when women were being a little flirty with me or hinting at things sexually. Now, if this makes me out to sound like some sort of natural, Cliff, I didn't get this through my thick noggin until one day when this gorgeous flight attendant, I used to kid she was the last hot flight attendant after 9/11 because it's like 2004. Basically reached across the table and flexed her cleavage at me and said, has it ever occurred to you to maybe try to kiss me? That's when I realized, bud, you need some work in reading signals. I mean, it had to come to that. And I started saying to myself, women don't do that. Women don't just throw themselves like that.
No, not too
So what have I been missing? And so I started looking for what I was missing. And I started looking for the little playful, cute hints and realized if she was laughing, she was having fun. And if she was having fun, she was feeling comfortable. I didn't need to be a comedian. She just was giggly and happy, which means I'm making her feel safe. And if I actually believe that this safety and security is making her feel sexual energy, because that's what femininity wants from a man, then I should kiss her. And it started working, like predictably, like clockwork. So finally I just sat, and I mean, oh, Cliff, when I was first divorced, I went out with women and I just sat there politely while she put the kids to bed and took her out to dinner, paid the bill. And then, 2 days later, it's like, I'm not feeling it anymore. Mr. Nice Guy stuff. Just be friends now. Because, I mean, I can't just go kiss her. I mean, she's a woman. Women don't like sex. Women aren't horny, And I had a girlfriend who was gorgeous. I mean, I like, if you've ever seen pictures of my wife is my type. I like cute, fun, spunky chicks. A little bit of grit to them, okay? And I had this little Latina I was going out who looked like I think the actress's name is either Tira or Kira Surkar, and she's from like The Good Place. She's just this cute little chick, looked just like her. And I just did nothing but hold hands with her and take her to San Antonio Spurs games. I live in San Antonio for 3 or 4 months, and then finally I had no idea how to kiss her. I had no idea. I don't know if you guys have ever been out with this woman. She keeps going out with you, but you just have no idea when the right time's going to come along to kiss her, or whether she even has a vagina. I mean, is she built like a Barbie doll down there or what? I mean, you just don't know. And so I broke up with her. I said, well, I just don't think this is going anywhere. She goes, I agree, but you're a really nice guy. I said, and meanwhile, I would have just loved to watch this chick have multiple orgasms. So a weird thing happened. I said, Cliff, this can't happen again. And I said, well, what did you want to happen that didn't? Because I was reading all the books, and there's some pragmatism there. I didn't really tell her what I wanted. I just basically hid from it. Well, what did you want? I would have loved to have gotten her naked and watch her have multiple orgasms. And I said something really strange to myself. Strange to me. I bet it's going to sound perfectly logical to you and these guys listening. But again, you're looking at it from a third party. It's hard to see from your own perspective, right? I said, what is so wrong about telling a woman that after a few days? You know, I find you really sexy. I would love to see you naked and watch you have multiple orgasms. That seems horrifying. But I remembered even online, I had revamped my Match.com profile back in like '02 or '03 based on what I read in David D'Angelo. And I decided I need to be masculine. I need to talk like a male human being to women. They're not here to find friends. And that felt really dangerous to me, you know? So I wrote in my online dating profile, I believe men should be men and women should be women, and that's the way it's designed. If you agree, read along. And, you know, go, if you want to go shoe shopping and get your nails done, go for it, but don't make me go with you. When you get home, though, you'll be kissed correctly and kissed often, you know, like from Gone with the Wind, right? Butler, right? I cringed when I hit publish on that. I didn't know what women were going to think. But those were the favorite parts of my profile when women wrote me back. I just can't wait to be kissed correctly and kissed often. I'm like, wait, what? We haven't even met yet. So I started getting this through my noggin and said, you idiot, be a little bolder. Because, you know, it isn't working otherwise. So I had another woman I went out with. And she was kind of like the woman I was telling, you know, like Tia Sarkar, you know. She was hard to read. She was what I've now called a non-reactor. Gorgeous, sexy as hell. And she went on a first date with me. And she went on a second date with me. Now, second date could be a mercy date. You know, your girlfriends put you up to it so you can see whether you really get along or whatever. But not a third date. We don't go on third dates with people we're not interested in. So I took her somewhere and I finally just tilted my head, looked at her and said, you need to be kissed. And she just tilted her head and I kissed her. And you would have thought I threw a match in a Chinese fireworks factory. I was like, why was that so hard to do with the little Tia Sarkar girl? What was I afraid of? What did I expect to be the really awful, terrible thing that would happen? Right? So the next time it happened, I had another woman across from me, and she was a little giving me the signals that were pretty clear. And I said, and she started talking, and I said, and I just didn't say anything. She was done. She goes, did you hear me? I said, oh, I was just a little distracted. And she goes, distracted by what? I said, oh, I was just watching your lips move. And she goes, and you didn't hear a word I said? No, I was just too distracted. Continue. She goes, well, no, wait, how were you distracted? I said, oh, I was just, oh, I don't know. Can you handle the truth already? She goes, of course I can handle the truth. I said, I was just wondering what it would be like to kiss those lips. But continue. She goes, oh, you want to kiss those lips, do you? I said, oh, that's not all, but continue. No, tell me what else. I said, I'd love to watch you have multiple orgasms because you're sexy as hell. She just threw her fork in the plate and said, girl, it's on. Let's go. I haven't had a man tell me that like that in years. I was like, what? You know, I restrained myself. I get guys who come to me, they're 6'2", rich, handsome, chiseled features, and they're friend zoned. They get off the plane, they look at me up and down, they go, you? I go, oh yes. Then I take them out in the field and they think I've hired actresses. But then they go, okay, you got my attention. And then by, you know, Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, because they're taller, better looking, you know, these guys are off to the races. They're smoking me. I mean, there's an advantage there. But I mean, I there's guys that come to me, they're getting JBF. They're getting just be friends with chicks and they've hit the genetic lottery. That's why they're too damn freaking afraid to act like a male or a masculine man. And they have had too many experiences with women and been fed too many wise tales by the media about how we're all toxic and women don't like sex and all sex is rape, and that they just bought into it and didn't even give themselves a fighting chance. Well, I represent the fighting chance because I believe in it. I've seen it and it's worked. And I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that
just a little passionate about this because it works.
Yeah, no, I appreciate hearing that. I think one of the big things that I'm not sure. I'm not in tune with how prevalent it is out in the I guess in the dating advice community these days. But I think that one of the keys is as we started saying, is a real understanding of masculinity and femininity. And that's, you know, a guy who really understands what it is to be masculine, I think, has a tremendous insight into what works with women.
And also coaxing out that female nature. You can see television shows with it. Right now, there's a show that they've kind of brought back on Hulu. That's actually a 20-year-old show, and I've never seen it streamed anywhere else. It's called Boston Legal. And I think it was a spinoff from The Practice, but I didn't watch much of the previous show. I only watched this one. And here's the first thing you need to know about this show. I used to have a standing appointment on Tuesday nights to make dinner together, watch this show, and have lots of sex afterwards with a certain cute little FWB girl I was dating before I met my wife back in 2004 when the show was like in its, or 2005 when it was like in its second season. This show has a phenomenal ability to make women horny who are watching it. Okay. That's because it really plays on feminine sexuality. It stars William Shatner of Captain Kirk fame, and it stars James Spader. If you watch The Blacklist, or if you watch all those John Hughes movies from the 80s where he's the douchey, guy who's trying to get the girl because he's got all the money. And he has that unmistakably snarky personality. Well, this show was the first show that really made you like James Spader, warts and all. And if you know the character, I mean, he's never been in the same conversation with Bradley Cooper and Brad Pitt and those guys for being, God's gift to women and Mr. Genetic Lottery. He's, about average height and not particularly good looking, right? And there's a character in this show who's played, his name's Brad Chase, and he's played by an actor who's not as famous, named Mark Valley. I actually have no idea what's happened to him since. And this Mark Valley guy's got these crystal blue eyes and these chiseled features and looks like just a gorgeous specimen of a male human being. And he is afraid of women. He is Mr. Nice Guy. And he's real unsure sexually. And he gets put in the just be friend zone all the time. And he just fumes because James Spader's character is getting all the women. And what James Spader is he's not afraid of women. He understands masculinity and femininity. If a woman doesn't like him up front or is just at odds with him, he doesn't take that as lack of attraction. He takes that as a challenge. No is no, right? But he takes it as a challenge, and he's like, oh, the masculine feminine vibe is going to win her over. She can't fight it. She's female. And then he's just this master of playful energy and dominant. I've got your back. I have your best interest at heart. I can provide for you. I can take care of you. I'm capable, right? And of course, everybody in the show is a lawyer, so they're all making the same amount of money and doing the same thing for a living, so they have that playing field. But Mark Valley's character, this Brad Chase guy, just can't freaking believe that Alan Shore, the guy played by Spader, is getting all the women. But all the women know immediately what's going on, right? So if you've ever seen, Sean Connery's James Bond, or David Duchovny as Hank Moody in Californication, it's a formula. I'm not afraid of women. I coax out. I love women. I bring out that feminine energy, and they just respond like I'm driving a Porsche 911 effectively. Right now, as Boston Legal goes, it's a great juxtaposition of those two characters because it flies in the face of what most guys think it takes to get women. Right? About, I'm not rich enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not good looking enough. No, you're not Alan Shore enough. You don't have the balls enough. You don't have the understanding of how to drive this Ferrari enough. And that's all learned skill. It's the greatest thing in the world that it's learned skill, because then you're not stuck. All things I can't control don't matter. Everything I can control does matter. That's the beauty of learning to drive masculinity and femininity.
What would you say was important in really impacting that on your thinking? Like, what was there some you had, I guess you had told me a couple of episodes of where things sort of clicked with women, you know, you had that
Yeah.
experience that you told me about, but was there something that made it stick? You know, it's one thing to come to a realization sort of once and then it just doesn't necessarily stay with you. Some
Well,
people, though, you know, there's some people have a gift that they can correct their mistakes and they really correct them. But I think for most guys, it's something that it doesn't necessarily happen the first time or the second time. It's just something that you've got to keep working at.
Well, help me help you. Is there a specific stage or a specific area of success you want me to comment on, or you want me to just give a few generalities and hope that the spaghetti sticks to the wall? Your dealer's choice.
Generally, it's just the you know, I mean, I've had the experience myself that it took a long time for things to stick. You know, like okay, it worked with this woman, but I wasn't sure it was going to work with the next one.
Well, all right, two things. Well, I'll make give you several, man. Let's just go for it. First thing was I always read women want tall guys. So if you get on Match.com and they say they're looking for a guy over 6 feet tall in the check boxes, I can't write to them because I'm only 5'6". I was asked, I think, I was asked on an online dating forum of men what the biggest game changer was for me in online dating. And it was writing to those women anyway and realizing they're just going to check the box because they were asked. When a real guy shows up who makes them feel something in their panties, none of those check boxes matter anymore. That was the game changer online. Victims weaponize statistics. If you guys don't take anything else from this entire interview, take those 3 words. Victims weaponize statistics. 60% of all marriages end in divorce. Well, 95% of women say they won't date anybody under 6 feet tall. So what? That's for those other guys. 60% of marriages should never have happened to begin with. 95% of short guys have a short guy problem. They feel like victims. It's all learned skill. Okay, so there's that. Second of all, remember, I decided I wasn't going to be victimized by this anymore, and it made perfect sense to me that men and women would want to be together. I am going to participate in this from now on. I made a decision, and there was no failing from there. Then when I saw quite literally the same patterns happen, it was garbage in, garbage out. I can't underscore enough. Women respond to a lead like a GSXR 750 superbike responds to the guy riding it. And that is there's no misogyny meant there. Women, whether they want to admit it or not, do this all the time. Seduction is an irresistible sales pitch to a woman's sensual side. That's what it is. She can't resist it. She wants to be taken. She wants to be dominated in bed as long as you have her best interest at heart. And most guys are just freaking selfish. It's not going to fly. So I realized if I relax and much like a point guard in NBA basketball, let the game come to me, it was a lot like a cat. Like if you go, here, kitty, kitty, to a cat, the cat will go and walk this way. As soon as you get on the phone and do something else, what's that cat doing? It's all rubbing itself up in your chili, trying to get your attention. I feel like I'm dehumanizing women so much by talking like this, but I'm talking about the primal element. We'll put the shoe on the other foot. Okay, if a pretty girl shows up and she drops her hanky, oh my goodness, is every guy not going to get up and give her the hanky and act like Mr. Nice Guy? Of course we will. And we know we're doing it, and we do it again. Well, that's human primal attraction, masculine, feminine nature. When women have this cute, mellifluous voice and they rub our shoulders and giggle and give us a back rub and make us dinner, oh my God, we'll follow them around everywhere. They're too good to be true. Well, they made us feel like all a woman has to say to most men is, "You're amazing," and he feels like a hero. And it's like, what else can I do for her? I love feeling amazing for a woman. I love being acknowledged that I'm a provider and protector and a hero. I love it. Hell, we as men watch superhero movies. It goes both ways. And once you realize these patterns work and we can't help the primal, then what you do is you add a simple layer of, I'm actually going to be good to women. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to make them feel smart instead of stupid. I'm going to validate them instead of making them feel horrible. I'm not going to have any sex with them until it's their idea, which happens faster than you think. And then the next thing you know, there's trust, there's adoration. They feel safe and secure, and they're attracted and they're safe and they'll do anything. And so I had a few of those lined up. And then the last aha moment I want to give you is when I had 5 women I wasn't in an exclusive relationship with, who none of them were dating anybody else because they were all trying to win me. I wasn't lying to them. I wasn't telling them, oh, you're the only one. I wasn't being a cad or a player. I simply was dating 5 women at once and being honest about it. And none of them, I said to several, why don't you go date some other guys? Well, I don't like any of these other guys. I just want to see you a couple times a week. I'm like, well, that's when I knew I didn't have any competition. So perhaps the best thing about this is as simple as I'm making it sound, if not easy, okay, simple but not easy. It's odd how this is actually the design. It's all how men and women are supposed to be. I think it is kind of only a learned skill nowadays because of the way we are culturally post-modernity. I think 100 years ago, this was a lot more apparent to most everybody. But, we've just the programming of media and post-modernity has peed in the swimming pool, right? But once I started realizing that women didn't necessarily have all the power in dating relationships like we often attribute to them, but rather it's whoever has options, whoever's the attractive one, whoever has choices is in control. I saw women competing for me, and these are gorgeous, sexy women. That's when all the pieces fell together. And I realized, here's what's going to happen one day, because I do want to get married again, and I do want to make babies and have a woman to go on trips with and build a legacy with. I will not be a statistic. I will not get a divorce someday again, because I will only marry the woman who's the one I really want. And if she doesn't really want me, she's not the right one. That was the day it all clicked. And I'll be honest with you. If you've ever watched the Olympics and seen like a 15-year-old little girl with the cameras trained on her and 2 billion people worldwide in the world watching her do a gymnastics routine, and you see her stick the landing and get a 10 and wonder how she had the composure to do that, the answer, well, there's got to be some mental fortitude. I mean, champions are cut out of a certain cloth. But more importantly, she's done it 1,000,000 times, and that was the 1,000,001st. Guys come to me and they go, I can't get any women to go out with me. Well, how many of you actually asked out? And I get like a sheepish grin and they look away. Because it's none. It's not you can't get any women. It's not that you can't get any women to go out with you. It's you've assumed they won't. Well, you need to assume differently. Give yourself permission not to get it right the first time. Okay? Just like learn how to ride a bike. The first time you learn how to ride a bike, it wasn't on Laguna Seca on a super bike. And you got to work up to that, right? But the more reps you get, the better you get. So honestly, I will look you in the eye, guys, and you, Cliff, and say, the day my wife walked through the door at 7:59 a.m. on February 11th, 2006 at IHOP at the corner of 1604 and 281. Yeah, it was breakfast, right? Table 23. I just did what I always did on first dates, even though I knew I was in deep, deep trouble. In the best way possible. I felt the butterflies. But it was just like, to me, the bottom of the ninth in the World Series, and I'm Derek Jeter, and I've been to 10 World Series or whatever, and I'm going to hit this home run. It's what I do. It's what I do. And that's after all these pieces put together, then you can sort of relax into it. And it's important to say that it's not always going to be a battle. And yes, don't get arrogant. You're no different. You're not the first guy who's ever going to fail at doing what worked for everybody else. Give yourself some credit, and then the pieces start falling together. And when they do, it's lather, rinse, repeat. You don't go on a vacation and give yourself a voluntary slump for 5 years. Like, okay, I don't need to do this. You don't let. And another thing, other women won't knock you off your pedestal. I was at last thing I'll say, because I know I'm saying an awful lot, but you're asking great questions. I was at a mastermind meeting with all my fellow dating coaches and pickup artists. And there's two kinds of guys out there, and I hope I'm not throwing anybody under the bus here or giving away a corporate secret. There's guys who are actually really good with women, and there's guys who are just really good marketers, and they're playing a fictional character. We all go to these meetings together, and we know who's who immediately. Well, two of the guys were actually really good. We were in Austin. My wife was sitting next to me, and they went out to meet women. They come back about 5 minutes later, and they're both laughing hilariously, hysterically. And what had happened is this woman had rejected one of them so rudely with such the perfect put down that they both just were erupting in laughter. Well, wait a minute. How come they weren't just like completely disrupted and ruined? Well, because it wasn't their first rodeo. They've talked to 200 women lately, and this was the one who was the outlier. So obviously they could slough it off and just laugh. It was pretty funny. But, that comes after a lot of reps that you can slough off the mistake and go do another one.
Yeah, shift this a little bit and ask you about that special woman. You were clearly lucky that you, I don't know if luck it plays
it's
a
not
role
luck.
in it. Okay. Give us some insight into how to get that special relationship, that one that obviously lasts and stuck with you, and obviously, it's the one that makes you have no real second thoughts about all the other women you're just passing up on.
And it's true. I have never. Two things. First of all, in 18 years of knowing my wife, Emily, I've never had one day that was like most horrible days in my first marriage. Second of all, I have never had a twinge of, oh, dear God, I made a mistake. Why did I marry this one? I should have held out. Never been. It sounds comical to me. How did I do it? Well, guess what? I'm not going to be long-winded. This will be 20 seconds or less. I know what my core belief system is. I know who the hell I am. I have a firm identity. I know what I believe, and I can defend it. I know what I like when it comes to women. I know what my favorite girlfriends all had in common. So I recognized one of me when she walked in the door. Quickly.
So it was like at first sight type thing, exactly.
No, I don't believe in that. We didn't go to Vegas, elope to Vegas. That would be irresponsible. I would say I knew all the building blocks, all the fundamental pieces were apparently there, but we still gave ourselves 9 months of literally being joined at the hip just to prove it all out, bear it all out, and shake it all out. We put it through the paces because we're mature. But yeah, I just knew she was one of me. There were no compromises. Because, see, when you don't have a core belief system, when you don't know what you believe, you have what I call no character. You'll just buy into whatever the group you want to be a part of is into just so they'll accept you. You see it a lot in politics nowadays, right? No, I know what kind of food I eat. I know where I like to go on vacation. I know what I like to do for fun. I know the God I pray to. I know the party I vote for. I know how to raise kids. I know how to save money. I know how I feel about making money. And I can tell you why. And if you have a different point of view, I'll respect it, but I can defend my way of thinking. And what happens is you realize when you have all this figured out, there's not a whole lot that doesn't make sense about it. It all kind of falls into a pattern. Because I'm this kind of person, I think, I feel, I vote, I pray, I eat a certain way. And so you meet a woman who's gone through that process in her own life, and you recognize each other. It's like the Spider-Man meme, like you. And actually, frankly, for about 6 months before I met my wife, I had evolved enough there that I was meeting a bunch of women who were very cute little ones of me. Also, here's something else I will add. Decide to stop attracting the toxic ones. Don't put up with them anymore. I keep attracting gold diggers. First sign that she's a gold digger, out the door. Don't put up with her because she has a nice ass. I decided to stop attracting crazy women. You know what I did, Cliff? I announced on first dates. You know what? I don't want women who are psycho and are under the care of a psychiatrist and are crazy. I want mental stability. Interesting. All the mentally unstable women, they know they're that person. They're looking for someone who'll put up with them. Once I served notice that I wouldn't put up with them, they were gone. I never dated another one. And that's true too. But I think that's also kind of a subset of knowing who you are and what you believe and what you're looking for. I do. That's part of it. What you do want, and also the deal breakers. I tell guys to make a list, because then you can't argue with yourself. You know, once you have it all down up front, once you meet a woman and you're thinking, well, I didn't want a woman who smoked and she smokes like a chimney, but no. You told yourself 3 months ago you weren't going to date women who smoke like a chimney. She's out the door.
Well, clearly knowing what you want and knowing who you are is very key to finding the right person.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, how you coach guys to meet women today.
Well, actually, I've always historically been very high on online dating, because I think it takes that fear of approaching away, because there's a barrier of electronics between you and a potential woman. You could also meet women right now instead of getting all gussied up and having to go somewhere. There's no specific venue or time or place. Also, every woman online is single. I used to sing the praises of online dating, for the first several years of my practice. Now I couldn't shout from the rooftops anymore that guys need to stay the hell off the apps and actually go back into the real world and meet women again. I think it's easier now to meet women in the real world than it is to meet them on apps. Apps, they capitalize on your low attention span, right? There's too much AI, so people aren't even real anymore or representing themselves authentically anymore. Filtering photos. Guys, even if you do meet someone online nowadays, you don't even know who you're going to be sitting in front of when you finally get there. During COVID, I believe in particular the app companies got good at keeping people addicted without giving them results. They couldn't believe people were still there when they couldn't actually meet. They took that to heart, and it became they ran it like a business, of course. Here's the thing. Since COVID, people's social skills atrophied. You probably noticed that people lack self-awareness. People may have been a little gruffer and a little rougher around the edges after COVID. We've been emerged from COVID now long enough that I think people are showing very clear evidence of being starved to be real, actually social again, instead of just doing this vicariously through Facebook or something. But they still don't have the gumption to do it. So I think the first guy who actually steps up and starts breaking the ice, just being social with women out there, will be richly rewarded for it. So not only is online dating kind of jumped off a cliff as far as being viable and your probability of being successful at it, I still coach guys on how to do it, because I think if you do it right, you can be more successful than other guys. But it's kind of like a sine wave, and the tables have turned towards the favor of going out and meeting women again. It's harder to do online dating now than it was in 2005. It's easier to meet women in real life than it was in 2005, because they're starving for attention, and nobody's breaking the ice. And again, it's a lot like pulling a ripcord. I mean, the first couple times I went out after COVID live in field with guys and we were talking to women, I was afraid of what was going to happen, because they seemed kind of like they had resting bitch face and stuff. But then we started talking to them, even groups of women at nighttime venues. They're like, oh, sit down. We have this place. It's like one of those outside venues with the Christmas lights. We bought a whole cooler full of margaritas. Have some. And we're like, all we did was say hello. They're just so amazed. The guys are talking to them. It's like they start giggling like sixth graders. It's crazy. You just, wow, yes. It's like, the first thing is like, wait, are you talking to me? Like De Niro and Taxi Driver. And then the next thing you know, he'll go, why, yes, I'm talking to you. And they'll go, oh, wow, this is so fun and cool. And then, you're off to the races, but you have to like get past that. You have to suspend their disbelief someone's actually being social with them. And then you're social with them. And then it just works. And then you're just friendly. I teach guys how to be funny, which is very, very helpful. And then guys are just amazed. They're just amazed. And so I've also realized that people are sick. That's one thing. Okay. And that stands alone. That's enough. But I'm going to give you another golden nugget. I also stumbled upon it. This isn't a golden nugget because I'm so smart. It's because I actually went out and stumbled across it. I do comedy and I like to do improv. It's fun. And one of the key rules of improv is to never block a conversation with someone else. You always say yes and. Like someone said, it's really cold outside. No, it's not. It's not cold at all. You're acting like a girl. That would just make her go, all right, bye. You'll go, yes, and I forgot my coat today. Oh my God, you poor thing. You must be freezing. Well, yes, and however, it's nice. Yes, and it's actually nice because it's 105 degrees here in the summer. I think I can deal with it. And she'll go, yeah, I guess we got to be grateful for what we have. Yes, and, speaking of gratitude, I'm kind of glad I just met you. You seem nice. And next thing you know, you're talking. Because the yes and carries the conversation. Here's why this is so cool. Because everybody online is looking for reasons to hate, to disagree. Twitter is just a cesspool of people arguing. And politically, people are at odds and they're looking for reasons to be angry. When you actually meet someone and you're talking to them and they align themselves with you, they agree with you on things, you've made a friend. They'll follow you around like a little puppy. They feel safe and secure. Now, guy will come to, there's lots of nuances to this. Guys will be like, well, does this mean you have to agree with everything a woman says, like some sort of simp? No, there's nuance to it. We don't have time to go into it here. But, if you carry your dignity through it, I'm not going to leave you hanging. The easy way to do that is just to change it to something else that you'll both agree on. She goes, she says something politically averse to you, just change the subject. Hey, that's really an interesting, shirt that store has in the window. Tell me more about that. What do you think of that? And then to go, oh yeah, and then she'll change the subject. That's the way to get out from under that. Or one of many. But that's the latest evolution I can give you on meeting women is, first of all, they're starved for the attention, and it's easier actually, even though it looks on the surface like it's going to be harder, more difficult because of the way people are nowadays. But in reality, it's easier. Second of all is, man, that yes and strategy works. It works in everything. If you listen to my podcast, you'll notice I yes and my guests and the conversations are better.
Yes, and then maybe I should ask you something else.
Simple. It's not complicated either, right? It's something any guy could do starting right now. Isn't that great? Yeah.
Well, the importance of language, I think, is very understated in many respects. I've known people who have had great insights into how to say certain things, and I guess it didn't quite start with Ross, but he certainly was one who pioneered the NLP. Angling that towards seduction and dealing with women. But I mean, it applies that pretty much to almost anything in life, I think.
It's just the golden rule, man. It's just help other people feel cool about themselves and you'll be a cool guy. I had a guy come to me and he was a professional hypnotist. And he looked at me after the second day of being out in the field with me and said, "You're the greatest hypnotist I have ever met." And I just looked at him and I said, "I never studied it." Because you didn't have to. It comes naturally to you. I go, I don't know if it comes naturally. But all I'm doing is talking about people about themselves, Dale Carnegie 101, right? And just helping them feel cooler and validate them and keeping it upbeat and not going into dark schlep rock mode. And then people respond. Girls just want to have fun, dudes. Don't be all dark and complain and hate everything. It's not going to end well. Help them be playful. Help them be light. Take yourself less seriously. It's okay. All that stuff matters. If that makes me some kind of NLP guy, I guess. But I mean, to me, it just it's just social skill, I suppose.
Do you have any particular advice for particular issues that guys have? You know, a guy thinks he's too short, a guy thinks he's not good looking enough, he's too overweight, too old. You have any particular tips for a variety of those things?
Well, here's the one that'll throw a blanket over all that. Don't worry about what you can't control. Only concern yourself with what you can control. For every guy who comes to me, I have a unique sticking point that they believe is that one thing that women will never find attractive because they've chosen to be a victim. I'm not very tall, but I'm a lot of other things that are pretty cool to women. If you're shy, understand that that's a fear of socialization you've got to get over. That's a problem. But like, all right, I'm short. All right, what else? I mean, if a woman wants to date only guys who are 6 feet tall, she's not going to be my girlfriend. It's just that women say that by default, and then they don't really mean it.
I have a good story about that, which I'll tell you after.
Old. I mean, I've always told guys I will hang up the gloves and retire from the ring when my 10 plus live infield stuff doesn't work anymore. I'm 57. It's working now better than it's ever worked, and I've been doing infield stuff for 17 years now. And it's still 22, 23-year-old women eating out of my hand. Now, whether they would actually go out with me and introduce me to their dad, who's 15 years my junior, who knows? But that's not even the point. The point is, if you're charming to women and women like you, now you have broken the ice when it comes to approaching women. You've got the holy grail of being able to read the room. Is she flirting with me? Is this someone I even want to go out with? And the chances are, if you say yes and you're both available, she'll say yes. But the guys figure that out very quickly, that this isn't about getting women to have sex with me. This is about making women love me. Then all of that takes care of itself. So if you're too ugly, women tend to not want a guy prettier than they are. First of all, that's fact. Okay. Don't even argue with that one. They do not want a guy who's prettier than they are. Second of all, women really value a man who does the best with what he's got. Okay. I mean, way my hairline is, I'm better off close cropping it. I color my hair. I have a beard and I keep it nice and neatly trimmed. I don't have nose hair. I don't have ear hair. I actually use anti-allergenic eye drops, so my eyes are as blue can get. I'm in decent shape. I carry myself well. I wear nice clothes. I have some style. So I'm not an ugly little schlub anymore. I'm just not very tall. Women will credit that. Women will credit a guy who does the best with what he's got as a guy who knows how to provide, protect, and have a plan. And all that's very masculine. Cliff, 95% of us are in the normal guy area when it comes to looks. I mean, some of us poor bastards been hit with an ugly stick, and some of us poor bastards are beautiful. Okay. But I'll tell you, one of the ugliest dudes I know has the cutest girlfriend. So that even goes out the window. Plus, she probably thinks he's hot. My dad used to know Yogi Berra personally, who was known far and wide for not only being a great catcher for the New York Yankees and saying silly things that made sense, but also not being very good looking. I mean, you got like a face like a catcher's mitt was a Yogi Berra thing. Okay. And my mom and my dad were out to dinner in New York City one night with Yogi Berra and his wife. And Yogi went up to use the men's room because he wasn't a young guy. And when he was walking away, his wife went, "Isn't he cute?" to my dad and my mom. And my dad and mom never forgot that because everybody else thinks he's like the ugliest guy. Well, that's his honey. She's one of him. He's one of her. Of course she thinks he's cute.
Yeah, you reminded me of this story, this guy that he had the right frame for women and everything. And
yeah.
But he was let's say about your height maybe. And he was telling me the story about this one woman who basically liked tall guys like him. He wasn't tall, but she saw him as tall because he had projected the right kind of image to her. So even though
I've had that happen with like
everything.
4'10" women. They thought I was like 5'10", or whatever. They didn't even see me as particularly short, but that's funny. Yeah.
I think we create our own reality in more ways than one. And
that's it. And women follow our created reality. That's their perception. Yeah.
Well, I think we've had quite a good run here. Maybe you can tell. Maybe you can tell the guys a little bit more about how they could find out more about you. What you do, what you offer.
Okay.
Go ahead, go for it.
Well, first of all, my name's spelled weird unless you're from Scotland. It's only one T in Scot, so it's SCOT MCKAY. I remember one time a girl went on a date with me. She goes, "My mom's gonna want to know if you're a nice Jewish boy. Are you a nice Jewish boy?" And I said, "Say my name softly to yourself." She went, "I guess not, huh?" I go, "No, I can't check that box for you." She goes, "Oh, that's all right." So SCOTMCKAY.net, ScottMcKay.net. When you go there, you'll be able to download my first book. It's been $37 for years. It's free to you, free download. Also, the podcast for years and years and years was called The Chick Whisperer. If you've heard of that, it's now the Mountaintop Podcast for Men. I have great guests on, including you. And I would say start there and just listen to how we talk about this stuff. I talk about men, women. It's all right to love men. It's all right to be a man, love yourself, and then love women. Masculinity and femininity aren't dirty words. Masculinity is supposed to be virtuous. And just see if you resonate. See if you're one of, if it's your cup of tea and I'm the kind of guy you want to work with. What you see is what you get with me. I walk the talk. I have a great relationship with my wife. We're monogamous. If you're into like thruples and guys who have open relationships and you think that's all cool, if you're into like Eastern religion and woo-woo stuff and a bunch of tricks and tactics, I'm probably not your guy. We talk about what works. We talk about having character. We talk about being the kind of man women want and getting women who won't ruin your life, piss in your garden, who actually you'll love to have around and who will make your life better. That all sounds good to you, then you can also take action at scottmckay.net. Get on my calendar for 25 minutes, and we'll talk about you and where you want to go with things. And it's no pressure. By now, you probably figured out I love talking about this stuff. I'm passionate about it. I'm happy to find out where you are and learn more by talking to you. So scottmckay.net, scottmckay.net. Make it happen.
Scott, I really want to thank you for taking the time with me. I very much enjoyed our time together here tonight.
Yeah, time flew. Wow.
Yeah, it really went by quickly, and I think I'm sure a lot of guys are going to get a lot out of this, and I expect that you'll be hearing from quite a few of them after this.
Happy to. And I always love hearing you guys. Even if you just call me and say, "Hey, I listened to a podcast. It sucked. Why don't you do this instead?" Hey, that's constructive. I'm glad to hear that too. I don't get a lot of that. Most of the guys, usually we put a lot of work and we make things excellent around here. Again, we're anti-victimhood. So along with that comes, a quest to be excellent. But yeah, man, happy to hear from all you guys. And listen, I'll post this to my YouTube account too. And Cliff, I want to invite you back on the show and have you talk about what's passionate for you,
That would be great.
sometime soon.
Sure,
Yeah,
that'd be great. Well, look, I'm going to end it right now, but thank you for joining us if you've been listening and watching this all the way through. And again, Scott, thanks very much for taking the time with me tonight. And I'm sure we're going to do this again for sure.
Thank you, Cliff. Thank you. Pleasure's all mine.
All right.